The storm had been raging for hours when I pushed through the emergency room doors, my daughter clutched against my chest. Rain streamed down the windows like tears, each drop echoing the panic hammering in my ribcage. Sophia's small hand gripped my jacket, her fingers cold and trembling. The waiting area reeked of disinfectant and something sharper, desperation, maybe, or the metallic tang of fear. 6 years of running had dulled my ability to tell the difference. "Mommy, my head hurts," Sophia whimpered, her voice barely audible over the chaos surrounding us. Her auburn curls were damp with sweat, plastered to her pale forehead. The grayish tint to her normally rosy skin made my stomach clench. "I know, sweetheart. I know." My voice cracked as I brushed her hair back with shaking fingers. "The doctor will help you soon." But soon wasn't coming fast enough. The emergency room was packed, people coughing, crying, bleeding. We'd been waiting for nearly 90 minutes. I'd already called in sick to my shift at the grocery store, which meant no paycheck tomorrow, which meant the electricity bill would go unpaid again. The brutal mathematics of survival never stopped calculating in my head, even as my 6-year-old daughter burned with fever in my arms. I pressed my lips to her forehead. Still scorching. Far too hot. "Ma'am?" A nurse appeared, her face drawn with exhaustion. "I'm sorry, but we're critically short-staffed tonight. It'll be at least another hour, maybe more." "Another hour?" I tried to keep the desperation from my voice and failed. "She's had a fever of 104 for 7 hours. She can't keep anything down. Please, just—" "I understand your concern, but there's a triage system. Unless she stops breathing or loses consciousness. She's 6 years old." The words came out broken, ragged. I hated myself for begging in a hospital waiting room while my child suffered. "Please. Just look at her." The nurse's expression softened fractionally, but she shook her head. "I'm truly sorry. We're doing everything we can." I sank back into the plastic chair, pulling Sophia closer. She whimpered, and I felt another piece of my heart crack. This was supposed to be better. Leaving him, leaving that nightmare, was supposed to make everything better. But here I was, unable to afford decent healthcare for my daughter, working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads in a neighborhood where I checked the locks 3 times every night. The automatic doors burst open with a gust of wind that carried the scent of expensive cologne and wet asphalt. I didn't look up. I'd learned years ago not to look at people who moved with that kind of confidence, that kind of presence. They existed in a different world, one I'd escaped. But then the atmosphere in the waiting room shifted. The air itself seemed to thicken, grow heavier. Conversations dropped to whispers, then died completely. Even the crying toddler 3 rows over seemed to quiet. I felt it before I saw anything, that familiar prickling at the base of my skull. The warning that used to tell me when he was near. My body recognized the danger before my mind caught up. No. It couldn't be. I kept my eyes fixed on Sophia, on the shallow rise and fall of her chest, on anything except the presence that now commanded the entire room. But I could hear them, footsteps, multiple sets, moving with the quiet efficiency of people trained to kill. The subtle rustle of expensive fabric. And underneath it all, a voice I'd spent 6 years trying to forget. "Clear the VIP wing. Now." Deep, authoritative, the kind of voice that expected instant obedience and always received it. My heart stopped. Then started again, too fast, too hard. My fingers tightened around Sophia until she squirmed. "Mommy, you're hurting me." "Sorry, baby. Sorry." I loosened my grip but couldn't bring myself to let go entirely. "Sir, you can't just," the nurse from before, but her voice had changed. Higher. Frightened. "Get Dr. Martinez on the phone. Tell him Viktor Kozlov is here and requires immediate attention." Viktor Kozlov. The name hung in the air like a death sentence, like everything I'd run from. Like the man I'd married at 20, divorced at 24, and spent every day since trying to erase from existence. I made the mistake of looking up. He stood in the center of the waiting room, surrounded by 5 men in dark suits who scanned the space with predatory vigilance. But I barely noticed them. My entire focus narrowed to him, the man I'd loved and feared in equal measure. 6 years hadn't diminished him. If anything, Victor seemed larger, more imposing. His face was all sharp angles and cold planes, his jaw harder than I remembered. Dark hair swept back from his forehead, emphasizing the ice-blue eyes that had once looked at me with something resembling tenderness. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 4 months of my rent, and despite the late hour and the storm, he looked immaculate. Untouchable. A white bandage wrapped around his right hand, visible where he'd pushed back his sleeve. Blood had seeped through in a small crimson bloom. Viktor Kozlov was injured. The man I'd never seen show weakness was bleeding. And then his eyes swept the room. I dropped my gaze immediately, instinctively hunching my shoulders, making myself smaller. Hide. The imperative screamed through every nerve. I pulled Sophia closer, angling my body to shield her, praying that 6 years and poverty and exhaustion had changed me enough. Had rendered me invisible. Please don't see me. Please don't see me. Please. The VIP wing is ready, Mr. Kozlov. A different voice. Male, obsequious, probably the hospital administrator. If you'll just follow me. Who else is here tonight? Victor's question cut through the air like a blade. Any other admissions I should know about? My blood turned to ice. Of course. Victor never entered any space without knowing exactly who occupied it. Who might pose a threat? Who might need to be eliminated? Old habits from a life built on paranoia and violence. Sir, I can't share patient information. Dmitri. Just the name, quiet, almost gentle. But one of the suited men stepped forward, and the administrator's protest died instantly. Of course. Right away. I'll pull the records immediately. My chest constricted. If he saw my name on those records, if he knew Sophia was here. I'd told him I'd had a miscarriage. 8 months into our marriage, when the violence had escalated, when the bodies had started piling up, when I'd realized the man I loved was buried so deep beneath the monster that I'd never reach him again. I'd lied. Told him we'd lost the baby. And 3 weeks later, I'd disappeared with help from a women's shelter and a social worker who'd falsified documents. Sophia had never existed in Victor's world. She was my secret, my reason for living, my beautiful, perfect daughter who would never know the darkness of her father's empire. But now we were in the same building, breathing the same air, and any second. Mommy. Sophia's voice pulled me back. Her hazel eyes were glassy with fever, but she was looking at me with confusion. Why are you shaking? I'm fine, baby. Just cold. You're lying. She said it matter-of-factly, the way only children can. You're scared. Too smart. She'd always been too smart. Sophia Bennett. A nurse appeared, reading from a clipboard. Her voice carried across the waiting room. No. No, 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 no. Victor's head turned. Not quickly, not obviously. But I saw it, that predatory shift of attention, like a wolf catching a scent. Bennett had been my maiden name. The name I'd reclaimed after the divorce. The name I'd given my daughter to keep her safe. But Victor knew that name. He'd whispered it against my skin on our wedding night, told me I'd never need it again, that I was Kozlov now and forever. I stood on shaking legs, lifting Sophia into my arms even though she was getting too big for it. Her weight grounded me. Reminded me why I had to move, had to get out of Victor's line of sight before. This way, please. The nurse gestured toward the hallway. I kept my head down, my hair falling forward like a curtain. Moved quickly but not too quickly. Running attracted attention. I'd learned that the hard way. We were almost to the hallway. Almost safe. Wait. The single word stopped everything. The nurses froze. Patients went silent. Even Sophia was still in my arms. I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. My feet kept moving, carrying us toward the hallway, toward safety, toward the woman with the child. Stop her. One of the suited men moved, blocking the hallway entrance with casual efficiency. He didn't touch me. Didn't have to. His presence alone was a wall. My arms tightened around Sophia. My mind raced through options: scream, run, fight. But this was a hospital, and these were Victor's men, and I'd learned years ago that fighting only made things worse. Slowly, so slowly, I turned around. Victor stood motionless in the center of the waiting room, but his entire body had gone rigid. Those ice-blue eyes were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin burn. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared, and I watched as recognition, disbelief, and something darker crossed his features. Natalie. My name left his lips like a prayer, like a curse, like everything I'd run from. The room tilted. Or maybe I did. Sophia's arms tightened around my neck, sensing danger even if she didn't understand it. Victor took a step forward. Just one. But the men around him shifted, responding like a choreographed dance. The administrator backed away. The nurse dropped her clipboard. "Mr. Kozlov, your hand," someone tried to intervene. He didn't even glance at them. His entire focus was on me, and I felt like prey caught in a trap of my own making. I should have driven to a different hospital. Should have gone to the clinic 2 towns over. Should have done anything except bring my daughter here tonight, when fate decided to throw us back into Victor's path. Welcome to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales. Please subscribe to my channel, like and tell me where you are watching from in the comment section. I appreciate you. How? His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried. How are you here? I couldn't speak. My throat had closed. My tongue felt too thick. All I could do was hold my daughter and try not to collapse under the weight of his stare. Victor's gaze dropped to Sophia, to the auburn curls, to the pale skin, to the small face pressed against my shoulder. I watched him calculate, his eyes narrowing, his jaw clenching, his hands curling into fists. How old? The question came out rough. Raw. Sir, your injury requires immediate. A young doctor appeared, clearly desperate to treat his important patient. How old? Victor's eyes never left Sophia. I found my voice, though it came out broken. 6. The number hung between us like a confession. 6 years since I'd left. 6 years since I'd told him I'd miscarried. 6 years of lies unraveling with each second he stared at my daughter. At his daughter. Mommy. Sophia lifted her head, looking at the man who commanded the room with absolute authority. Who is that? The silence stretched like a blade against my throat. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think beyond the primal need to protect Sophia from the truth crashing down around us. Victor's face had gone pale beneath his olive complexion. His knuckles white where his fists clenched. Who is that, Mommy? Sophia asked again, louder this time, her fever-bright eyes fixed on the stranger who stared at her like he'd seen a ghost. No one, sweetheart. Just, my voice cracked. Just someone Mommy used to know. Used to know. Victor repeated the words like they were poison. His chest rose and fell with controlled breaths, but I could see the rage building beneath the surface. 6 years ago, I would have cowered. Now I just held my daughter tighter and met his gaze with every ounce of strength I had left. Mr. Kozlov, please, the doctor tried again. Get out. Victor's voice dropped to that dangerous quietness I remembered too well. Everyone out. Clear this wing. Now. The waiting room erupted into controlled chaos. The administrator ushered patients toward a different entrance. Nurses scrambled. And within minutes, we were alone, me, Sophia, Victor, and his 5 shadows positioned at every exit. No escape. Victor, please. I hated the tremor in my voice. She's sick. She needs a doctor. Just let us. Let you? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Let you what, Natalie? Disappear again? Take my daughter, his voice broke on the word. Take my daughter and vanish for another 6 years? Sophia's body tensed against mine. She was smart enough to understand danger, even through her fever. Mommy, I'm scared. It's okay, baby. Everything's okay. The lie tasted bitter. Victor moved then, closing the distance between us in 3 long strides. I stumbled backward, but there was nowhere to go. His men had us surrounded, and the wall was cold against my back. He stopped inches away, close enough that I could smell the rain on his clothes, the copper scent of blood, the familiar cologne that used to make me feel safe. His eyes swept over Sophia with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Look at me. A command, not a request. I tilted my chin up, refusing to cower even as my heart hammered against my ribs. You told me you lost the baby. His words came out precise, measured, the calm before the storm. You cried in my arms and told me our child was dead. I held you while you grieved. He stopped, jaw working. I believed you. I had to. The words burst out. You had to. Had to lie to me? He repeated flatly. Had to steal my daughter? Had to make me think. His hand came up, and I flinched instinctively. He froze. Something flickered across his face, pain, maybe, or recognition of what I'd become. What he'd made me become. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his hand. I would never hurt you. The words came out strained. I never. You killed a man in our living room. The memory exploded out before I could stop it. I came downstairs for water, and there was blood everywhere. And you, my voice broke. You looked at me and told me to go back to bed like it was nothing. He betrayed the organization. He would have killed us both if. There was always a reason. I clutched Sophia tighter, feeling her shake against me. Always a justification. Always one more body, one more threat, one more nightmare I had to pretend was normal. So you ran. His voice had gone cold again. You ran, and you took. His gaze dropped to Sophia, and something raw and broken crossed his features. You took everything. I took myself. I took my daughter. I gave her a life where she doesn't have to see violence. Where she doesn't have to learn that people are disposable. Where she grows up without a father. Victor's hand moved toward Sophia's face, and I jerked away, but not fast enough. His fingers brushed against her feverish cheek with a gentleness that made my chest ache. Where she's sick and you can't afford proper care. Where you work yourself to death trying to survive. He stopped, expression hardening. He stopped. While I have everything she could ever need. Except safety. I met his eyes. Except a normal life. Except the chance to be a child instead of the heir to a criminal empire. She's my blood. His voice rose. She's my daughter. She's mine. The words echoed through the empty waiting room. Sophia whimpered, and Victor visibly struggled to control himself. When he spoke again, his voice was lower but no less intense. 6 years, Natalie. 6 years you kept her from me. 6 years of birthdays, first words, first steps. His hand curled into a fist again. Did you even think about what you were taking from me? Every single day. The admission came out strangled. Every single day I thought about it. But I also thought about coming home to find you dead. I thought about men breaking into our house. I thought about Sophia growing up thinking violence is love and power is everything. Tears burned my eyes. I thought about what that world did to you, and I wouldn't let it have her too. Victor stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the battle raging behind his eyes. The man who'd once promised me the world warring with the monster who'd built an empire on blood and fear. Dimitri. He didn't break eye contact with me. Get Dr. Martinez. Tell him I need him to examine a child. 6 years old, high fever. Now. Sir, your hand. Now. One of the suited men disappeared down the hallway. The others remained at their posts, silent sentinels. You can't just, I started. I can do anything I want. Not a boast, just fact. You know that. You've always known that. He gestured toward a row of chairs. Sit. Let the doctor examine her. Then we'll talk. There's nothing to talk about. There's 6 years to talk about. His voice dropped to that dangerous softness again. 6 years of lies. 6 years of my daughter growing up without me. 6 years of you living like this. He gestured at my worn coat, my scuffed shoes, the exhaustion I couldn't hide. When you could have had everything. I had everything. I held Sophia closer. I have everything. You have poverty. You have fear. You have a sick child you can't afford to treat. He leaned in close enough that his breath ghosted across my cheek. You have nothing, Natalie. But that ends tonight. The threat, or promise, hung in the air between us. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Dr. Martinez appeared, his expression professionally neutral despite being summoned by a man everyone knew was dangerous. Mr. Kozlov. He nodded respectfully. I understand there's a child who needs an examination? My daughter. Victor said the words like he was claiming territory, marking what belonged to him. Examine her. Tell me what's wrong. Dr. Martinez's gaze flickered to me, seeking permission. But Victor moved to block his view. The message was clear, he was in charge now. My permission was irrelevant. Mommy? Sophia's voice was small, confused. What's happening? It's okay, baby. The doctor's going to make you feel better. Come with me, sweetheart. Dr. Martinez smiled kindly, gesturing toward an examination room. Let's see what's bothering you. I moved to follow, but Victor's hand closed around my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. His touch burned through my skin, familiar and terrifying. Let go. We need to talk. My daughter needs me. Our daughter, he corrected quietly, is getting medical attention. You and I need to discuss how this is going to work. There's no how this works. We're leaving as soon as. You're not leaving. The words were absolute. Final. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever again. Ice flooded my veins. You can't keep me here. Can't I? His thumb traced a circle on the inside of my wrist, and I hated that my body still remembered his touch, still responded to it. You walked back into my life tonight, Natalie. You brought my daughter into this hospital where anyone could have seen her, recognized her, used her to get to me. His grip tightened slightly. Do you have any idea how many enemies I have? How many people would kill a child just to hurt me? Which is exactly why I left. And now you're back. He pulled me closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, the small scar above his eyebrow from a fight when he was 19. Now she exists. Now people will know. And if you think I'm going to let you walk out that door with my daughter, unprotected, vulnerable, he stopped, jaw clenching. You don't know me at all anymore if you think that's possible. I know exactly who you are. I tried to pull away, but his hold was unbreakable. You're a man who takes what he wants. Who destroys anything in his way. Who? Who loved you? The words stopped me cold. Who mourned you? Who spent 6 years believing I'd failed to protect our child? His free hand came up to my face, and this time I couldn't flinch away. His fingers traced my cheekbone with a gentleness that felt like violence. Who's been half dead inside since you left? Don't. My voice broke. Don't do this. Do what? Tell you the truth? His forehead dropped to mine, and I felt the tremor run through him. I looked for you for years, Natalie. I had every resource at my disposal searching for any sign of you. And nothing. You vanished like you'd never existed. Because I had to. Because staying meant being mine. He pulled back enough to look at me. And you couldn't handle that. Being yours meant being owned. It meant watching you become someone I didn't recognize. It meant. The examination room door opened, and Dr. Martinez emerged with Sophia in his arms. My daughter looked smaller somehow, more fragile, and my maternal instinct overrode everything else. I wrenched my wrist from Victor's grip and rushed to take her. She has a severe kidney infection, Dr. Martinez explained, his expression serious. She needs 4 antibiotics immediately. I'd like to admit her for at least 48 hours to monitor her progress. No. The word came out sharp. We can't afford. Cost is irrelevant. Victor stepped beside me, his hand settling on Sophia's back in a gesture so natural it made my throat tight. Admit her. Private room. Whatever she needs. Victor. Whatever she needs. Each word was punctuated with steel. And I want security in her room. No one in or out without my approval. Dr. Martinez nodded, understanding the unspoken command. In this city, everyone knew what Victor Kozlov's protection meant. I'll arrange everything immediately. He hesitated, glancing at Victor's bloodied hand. Sir, your injury is fine. Take care of my daughter first. My daughter. He kept saying it like he was branding the words into reality. Within minutes, we were being ushered into a private room that looked more like a luxury hotel suite than a hospital. Sophia was settled into bed with fresh sheets, and a nurse began setting up the 4 with practiced efficiency. I sat beside her, holding her hand, while Victor stood at the window like a dark sentinel. Mommy, I don't like needles. Sophia whimpered as the nurse inserted the 4. I know, baby, but it'll make you feel better. Just squeeze my hand. Brave girl. The nurse smiled at her. You're doing great. Victor turned from the window, and I watched him approach the bed with careful, measured steps. He looked at Sophia like she was something precious and breakable, and I saw his hands tremble slightly before he shoved them into his pockets. What's your name? He asked quietly. Sophia looked at me for permission, and I nodded numbly. Sophia. Sophia. Victor repeated it, and I heard the catch in his voice. That's a beautiful name. Mommy gave it to me. It means wisdom. Something flickered across Victor's face, recognition, perhaps, of the meaning, of the fact that I'd named our daughter after the one thing his world lacked. Your mother is very wise. His eyes met mine over Sophia's head, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. She always has been. The nurse finished with the 4 and stepped back. She should rest now. The antibiotics will work quickly, but she needs sleep. As if on cue, Sophia's eyes began to droop. The fever and exhaustion were finally catching up now that the adrenaline had faded. I brushed her hair back, humming softly until her breathing evened out. Only then did I look up to find Victor watching us with an expression I couldn't decipher. Hunger, maybe. Longing. Or perhaps just the cold calculation of a man who'd found something valuable he thought he'd lost. We need to talk. He gestured toward the door. Outside. I'm not leaving her. Dmitri will stay with her. No one gets in or out. He moved closer, voice dropping. You and I are going to have a conversation about what happens next, and we're not doing it where she might wake up and hear. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to stay glued to Sophia's side. But I could see the determination in Victor's eyes. This conversation was happening whether I wanted it or not. Reluctantly, I stood, casting one last look at my sleeping daughter before following Victor into the hallway. He led me to an empty consultation room and closed the door behind us. The click of the lock felt like a death sentence. You can't keep us here, I said before he could speak. I can. I will. He leaned against the door, blocking my only exit. But let's start with something simpler. Why come back? Why risk coming to this hospital when you know I use it? I didn't know. The words burst out. I didn't know you'd be here tonight. She was sick, and this was the closest hospital, and I was desperate. I never wanted you to find us. Find you. He pushed off the door, stalking toward me. You're talking like your prey, Natalie. Like I'm some kind of predator hunting you. Aren't you? I backed up until I hit the desk. You've spent this whole night backing me into corners, giving orders, making decisions without asking what I want. That's exactly what you always did. That's exactly why I left. He stopped just inches away, his hands coming down on either side of me, caging me in. What you want, he said softly, dangerously, is to raise my daughter in poverty while you work yourself to death. What you want is to keep her from me, from her heritage, from everything she deserves. So forgive me if I don't particularly care about what you want right now. And what do you want? I challenged, meeting his gaze. Because if you think I'm going to play happy family, if you think you can just slot back into our lives like the last 6 years never happened. What I want, he interrupted, voice dropping to a whisper, is to understand how you could keep this from me. How you could let me believe our child was dead while you raised her alone. His hand came up to my face, and despite everything, I couldn't make myself pull away. What I want is to know if you ever loved me at all, or if it was all a lie from the beginning. The question hung between us, heavy with 6 years of grief and rage and something darker, something that felt dangerously like the ember of what we'd once had, still burning beneath the ashes. I loved you so much it destroyed me, I whispered. I loved you until I couldn't recognize myself anymore. Until I realized that loving you meant losing everything else, including our daughter if I stayed. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt the tremor in his touch. And now? Now I'm terrified, I admitted, because I see the way you look at her, and I know you'll never let us go. And I don't know if I have the strength to fight you anymore. Then don't. He leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear. Don't fight me, Natalie. Come home. Let me protect you both. Let me own us. I turned my head to meet his eyes. Because that's what it would be, Victor. You don't know how to love without possessing. Maybe not. His hand slid down to my throat, not squeezing, just resting there like a collar, like a claim. But I know how to keep what's mine safe. And you, both of you, are mine. You always have been. The door burst open, and one of his men appeared, expression urgent. Sir, we have a situation. Volkov's crew knows you're here. They're moving. Victor's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. The vulnerable man disappeared, replaced by the cold, calculating crime lord. His hand dropped from my throat as he turned. How many? At least 10, maybe more. They're surrounding the building. My blood ran cold. Sophia is safe. Victor's voice was absolute. Dmitri, get 4 more men to that room. No one gets near my daughter. No one. He turned back to me. You stay here. Don't move. Don't open this door for anyone except me. Understand? What's happening? What's always happening in my world? His expression was grim. War. And then he was gone, leaving me alone in the consultation room with the terrible understanding that by walking into this hospital tonight, I hadn't just revealed Sophia's existence to her father, I'd painted a target on both our backs. The minutes crawled by like hours. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear anything beyond the thundering of my own heartbeat. Distant shouts echoed through the corridors, followed by the unmistakable crack of gunfire, muffled, but close enough to make my knees weak. Sophia. Every maternal instinct screamed at me to run to her, to throw my body between her and whatever danger lurked outside. But Victor's command held me frozen. Stay here. Don't move. I hated that I was listening. Hated that after 6 years of freedom, I'd fallen back into the pattern of obedience so easily. More gunshots. Closer this time. My hand shook as I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy medical textbook from the desk. Pathetic defense against guns, but it was something. I positioned myself behind the door, textbook raised, and waited. The doorknob turned. "Don't move or I'll," the words died in my throat as Victor pushed inside. His suit jacket was gone, his white shirt splattered with blood. Fresh blood. Not his own, I didn't think. But I couldn't be sure. "Are you hurt?" The question escaped before I could stop it. He looked at me, really looked at me, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that I'd asked. That I still cared enough to ask. No. He closed the door behind him, locking it again. "Volkov's men are contained. 4 dead, 6 in custody." I set down the textbook with trembling hands. "And this is the life you want for Sofia? Shootouts in hospitals? Bodies in hallways? This is the life we have." He moved closer, and I could smell the cordite on his clothes, the metallic tang of blood. "Volkov found out about you. About the girl. Word travels fast in our world. She's not the girl. She's Sofia. Your daughter. My daughter." The words seemed to taste strange on his tongue. "And if people already know, then we're past the point of hiding." He reached for me, his hand cupping my face with startling gentleness given what he'd just done. "Do you understand now? Do you see why you can't just walk away? Every enemy I have will be looking for her, for you, to use you against me. Then let us disappear again. Give us money, new identities." "No." The word was absolute. "I lost you once. I mourned a daughter I thought was dead. I'm not losing either of you again. So what then?" I pushed his hand away, anger rising to replace the fear. "You keep us locked in some compound? Prisoners in a gilded cage? I will keep you safe." His jaw clenched. "I keep my daughter alive. And yes, if that means you lose some of your precious freedom, then that's the price you'll pay for lying to me for 6 years. You don't get to punish me for protecting her from you." "From me?" His voice rose, and I saw the crack in his composure. "I would die for that girl. I would burn this entire city down to keep her safe. And you think," he stopped, visibly struggling for control. "You think I'm the threat? You're the reason there is a threat." I shot back. "If you weren't who you are, if you hadn't chosen this life." "I didn't choose it. I was born into it." He grabbed my shoulders, not hard, but firm enough to make me meet his eyes. "My father. His father before him. This is what we are. And Sofia is part of that whether you like it or not. The moment she was conceived, her fate was sealed." "No." Tears burned my eyes. "No, I won't let. It's not up to you anymore." He pulled me close, and I felt the tremor in his hands. "She's mine, Natalie. My blood, my air. And I will do whatever it takes to protect her, even from you, if necessary." The threat hung between us. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. "We need to move. Now. This hospital isn't secure. Sofia needs. Dr. Martinez is arranging transport. Private ambulance. My men as escorts. We're taking her to my estate." "Your estate." The words felt like a noose tightening. "The same place where you'll both be safe." He moved to the door, hand on the knob. "It has a full medical facility. Better than anything here. She'll have round-the-clock care. This isn't a negotiation. You can walk out of here with me willingly, or I can have Dmitri carry you. Your choice." I wanted to fight. Every fiber of my being screamed to resist. But the sound of those gunshots still echoed in my ears, and the image of Sofia alone and vulnerable made the decision for me. "Fine." The word tasted like defeat. "But this doesn't mean." "It means whatever I say it means." He opened the door, checking the hallway before gesturing me forward. Stay close to me. Don't speak to anyone. Don't look at anything. Just walk. The hallway was chaos barely contained. Hospital staff huddled in doorways. Security guards spoke in urgent whispers. I caught glimpses of what looked like crime scene tape being unfurled. Victor's hand settled on the small of my back, proprietary and protective all at once, guiding me through the maze of corridors. We reached Sophia's room to find Dimitri and 4 other men positioned like sentries. Inside, Dr. Martinez was checking Sophia's 4 while a nurse packed supplies into bags. Sophia was awake, her eyes wide and frightened. Mommy. She saw me and started to cry. I'm here, baby. I rushed to her side, gathering her into my arms. I'm right here. There were loud noises. I was scared. I know. I know. I kissed her forehead, still warm but not as hot as before. But we're leaving now. Going somewhere safer. Where? Her gaze drifted past me to Victor, who stood in the doorway like a dark guardian. Is he coming too? The question was so innocent, so trusting, and I felt something crack inside my chest. Sophia didn't know, didn't understand. To her, Victor was just a stranger who happened to be there. Yes. Victor's voice was rough as he approached. I'm coming too. I'm going to make sure you and your mama are safe. Is that okay? Sophia studied him with the serious consideration only children possess. Are you a doctor? No. A policeman? Something dark flickered across Victor's face. No. Then what are you? The question hung in the air. I saw Victor struggle with it, saw the carefully constructed walls he'd built around himself tested by the innocent curiosity of a 6-year-old girl who didn't know she was talking to her father. I'm someone who cares about your mama very much, he finally said. And now I care about you too. Oh. Sophia seemed satisfied with this answer. Okay then. Dr. Martinez cleared his throat. The ambulance is ready. I'll accompany you to ensure continuity of care. Good. Victor nodded to Dimitri. 8-vehicle convoy. Snipers on the rooftops until we're clear. No one follows us. The efficiency was terrifying. Within minutes, Sophia was being transferred to a stretcher, still connected to her 4. I stayed beside her, holding her hand, while Victor orchestrated the movement with military precision. The private ambulance was more like a mobile medical suite, state-of-the-art equipment, comfortable seating, everything pristine and expensive. Dr. Martinez took position near Sophia's stretcher while I sat on the small bench. Victor settled across from me, his ice blue eyes never leaving us. As we pulled away from the hospital, I watched through the tinted windows as the building disappeared behind us. Each mile that passed felt like another link in the chain binding us back to Victor's world. How long? I asked quietly, my fingers still interlaced with Sophia's. How long are you planning to keep us at your estate? As long as necessary. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You need to understand something, Natalie. Volkov's men came to that hospital to kill me. When they found out about you, about Sophia, that changed everything. You're not just witnesses. You're leverage. You're targets. Because of you. Yes. He didn't deny it. Because of me. Because of what I am. And you can hate that all you want, but it doesn't change the reality. My daughter, our daughter, is now in danger because she exists. And until I eliminate that threat permanently, neither of you leaves my sight. You can't just. I can. I will. His hand shot out, gripping my knee, not hard, but firm enough to emphasize his words. You don't get to make decisions anymore, Natalie. You lost that privilege when you stole 6 years from me. Now I'm in control. Now I decide what's best for my family. Family? I laughed bitterly. Is that what you think we are? That's what we've always been. His thumb traced a circle on my knee, the gesture so familiar it made my breath catch. You can be angry. You can hate me. But you're still my wife. Ex-wife. We'll see about that. The promise in his voice sent ice through my veins. Divorce papers can be undone, especially when they were obtained under false pretenses. You can't. I can do anything I want. He leaned back, his expression unreadable. You're about to remember exactly how much power I have, Dorothea. The endearment, my dear, was like a knife to the heart. He hadn't called me that since the early days of our marriage, when I'd still believed in the possibility of happiness, before the violence had eclipsed everything else. Sophia stirred beside me, her hand tightening around mine. Mommy, where are we going? Somewhere safe, baby. Will there be toys? Despite everything, I felt a small smile tug at my lips. Even sick and scared, she was still a child. I'm sure there will be. Anything you want. Victor's voice was soft as he looked at Sophia. Toys, games, books. A room of your own. A yard to play in once you're feeling better. Really? Sophia's eyes lit up despite her fever. A yard? We don't have a yard at our apartment. Mommy says we can't afford one. I felt the judgment in Victor's gaze, the unspoken accusation. See what you've reduced her to. See what she could have had. You'll have everything now, Victor promised, and I heard the vow beneath the words. Everything I should have given her from the beginning, if you hadn't stolen her from me. The rest of the ride passed in tense silence. I watched the city give way to suburbs, then to countryside, and finally to the massive iron gates that marked the entrance to Victor's estate. My stomach twisted as they swung open, revealing the long driveway lined with trees. I'd been here before, lived here, actually, for the brief period of our marriage. But it looked different now. More fortified. More prison-like. High walls topped with security cameras. Guard posts at strategic points. Armed men patrolling the perimeter. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. The ambulance pulled up to the main house, and I saw at least a dozen men positioned around the property, all armed, all watching. Welcome home, Victor said quietly, and the words felt like a life sentence. Dr. Martinez supervised Sophia's transfer into the house, directing staff to set up the medical equipment in what I assumed was a prepared room. I followed numbly, still holding Sophia's hand as we were led through marble hallways that echoed with each footstep. The room they'd prepared was enormous, easily 4 times the size of our entire apartment. A hospital bed had been set up near the windows, surrounded by monitoring equipment, but the rest of the space was furnished like a luxury bedroom. Toys lined the shelves. Books filled a small case. Even a television hung on the wall. This is mine? Sophia breathed, her eyes wide despite her exhaustion. This is yours, Victor confirmed, and I heard the satisfaction in his voice. This is what I can give her. This is what you couldn't. As Dr. Martinez and the nurses got Sophia settled, Victor's hand closed around my elbow. We need to talk. Privately. I'm not leaving her. She's being cared for by medical professionals. She's safe. He glanced at Dimitri in the doorway. And you and I have things to discuss that she doesn't need to hear. Before I could protest further, Dimitri appeared. Sir, the security sweep is complete. The property is locked down. Volkov's second-in-command was picked up an hour ago. He's waiting for you in the south wing. Victor's expression hardened. Good. Have him prepared. The casual way he said it, have him prepared, made my blood run cold. I knew what that meant. What would happen in whatever room existed in that south wing? Victor. Stay with Sophia. He released my elbow, his hand trailing down my arm before dropping away entirely. Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow. Tomorrow? What about tonight? What are you going to? What I always do. His eyes met mine, and I saw the monster lurking beneath the surface, the man who'd ordered deaths while kissing me goodnight. I'm going to protect what's mine. By any means necessary. He turned and walked away, Dmitri following, and I was left standing in a gilded room that felt more like a cage than anything else. I looked at Sophia, already drifting off to sleep with the fever medication in her system, and felt the walls closing in. We were trapped, both of us. And I had no idea how we'd ever escape again. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every sound in the enormous house made me jump, footsteps in distant hallways, doors closing, the low murmur of voices discussing things I didn't want to imagine. I sat beside Sophia's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest, and tried not to think about what Victor was doing in the south wing. I tried not to remember the man I'd fallen in love with before the violence had consumed everything good in him. Dawn broke through the windows, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. Sophia's fever had broken sometime during the night, and her color looked better. Dr. Martinez had checked on her twice, assuring me the antibiotics were working, that she'd make a full recovery. At least one thing was going right. The door opened quietly, and I tensed until I saw it was just a woman in her 50s carrying a tray. She wore simple clothes and had kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "Good morning," she said softly, setting the tray on a nearby table. "I'm Irina. I've been with the family for 25 years. Mr. Kozlov asked me to bring you breakfast. I'm not hungry. You need to eat." Her tone was gentle but firm, motherly. "You can't take care of your daughter if you don't take care of yourself." The practical wisdom in her words made something in my chest tighten. How long had it been since someone had cared whether I ate, whether I rested? In my world of survival, those luxuries had disappeared. "Thank you," I managed, and she smiled again before leaving quietly. The breakfast was elaborate: fresh fruit, pastries, eggs cooked perfectly, coffee that smelled like heaven. Everything I couldn't afford on 2 jobs worth of salary. I hated that it tasted good. Hated that part of me had missed this, the comfort, the ease of not worrying about every dollar. "Mommy." Sophia's voice was stronger than yesterday, clearer. "Where are we?" "Somewhere safe, baby." I moved to sit beside her, brushing her curls back. "How do you feel?" "Better." She looked around the room with wonder. "This place is huge. Are we really staying here?" "For a little while." "And that man from the hospital, the one who looks sad when he looks at you, he's here too?" My breath caught. Children saw too much. Understood things adults thought they'd hidden. "He's an old friend of Mommy's." "He doesn't look like a friend." Sophia's hazel eyes, so much like mine, studied me seriously. "He looks like he wants to keep you." "Keep me?" "Like how I keep my special rock. The one I found at the park that I won't let anyone else touch." She reached for my hand. "Are you his special rock?" The metaphor was so childlike and yet so accurate it made my throat tight. "It's complicated, baby." "Is he a bad man?" How did I answer that? "Yes, he kills people." "Yes, he runs a criminal empire." "Yes, he's dangerous and possessive and everything I ran from." "But also, he's your father. He loved me once, in his own twisted way. And he's the reason you're alive, because I couldn't bring myself to tell him about you when I left. Couldn't destroy him completely, even as I saved myself." "He's complicated," I settled on finally. "Like most people." Before Sophia could ask more questions, the door opened. This time it was Victor, showered and changed into fresh clothes, dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes suggesting he'd slept as little as I had. "How is she?" His gaze went immediately to Sophia. "Better. The fever broke." "Good." He moved closer, and I saw the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his mouth. Whatever had happened last night had taken its toll. "Dr. Martinez will be by in an hour to check on her. In the meantime," he turned to me. "We need to talk. Now. I'm not leaving." Irina will stay with her. She raised 3 children of her own. She'll be safe. His tone left no room for argument. You and I have decisions to make. I looked at Sophia, who'd already been distracted by the television remote, cartoons flickering to life on the screen. She seemed content. Comfortable. Safe, at least for the moment. 30 minutes, I said quietly. That's all you get. We'll see. He led me through the house, past rooms I remembered and ones I didn't, down hallways that seemed to stretch forever. We ended up in what must have been his office, dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk that commanded the space. The windows overlooked the grounds, security men visible in the distance. Victor closed the door behind us and leaned against it, studying me in the morning light. You look tired. Whose fault is that? Mine. He didn't deny it. Everything that's happened is my fault. The life I chose, the enemies I made, the fact that you felt you had no choice but to run. He pushed off the door, moving to pour himself a drink despite the early hour. I've had all night to think about that. About what kind of man drives away the woman he loves. What kind of monster makes her fear him so much she'd rather struggle alone than. Don't. I cut him off. Don't try to make yourself the victim here. You chose this life. Every single day you chose violence and power over you. He turned, glass in hand. Over us. Yes, I did. Because I thought, he stopped, jaw clenching. I thought I could keep you safe. I thought if I was powerful enough, ruthless enough, no one would dare touch you. Instead, I became the thing you needed protection from. The admission hung between us. I'd expected anger, demands, threats, not this raw honesty that made him seem almost human again. Why are you telling me this? Because Volkov's man talked last night. He took a long drink. Before he died, he told me everything. There's a price on Sophia's head. $7 million to whoever brings her in alive. Ice flooded my veins. What? They want leverage over me. They want to use my daughter to control me, to break me. His hand tightened around the glass. And they know exactly who she is now. Your name, her name, where you lived, where you worked, everything. Oh God. My legs gave out, and I sank into the nearest chair. Oh God. This is why you can never leave here. He set down his glass and crouched in front of me, his hands covering mine. Why do I need you to understand that this isn't about control or possession or any of the things you think? It's about survival. Sophia's survival. Yours. There has to be another way. Witness protection, or they'd find you in a week. His thumbs traced circles on the backs of my hands. I have resources they don't. I have security they can't penetrate. But only here, Natalie. Only if you stay. As what? Your prisoner? As my wife. The words hit like a physical blow. I jerked my hands away, standing so fast the chair scraped against the floor. We're divorced. A piece of paper I never signed. He stood as well, and I saw the determination in his eyes. My lawyer filed it away. Forgot to process it. As far as the law is concerned, we're still married. Rage and disbelief warred inside me. You can't just. I can. I did. He moved closer, backing me against the desk. And before you start talking about annulments or forcing my hand, consider this: as my wife, you have protection. Every organization in this city knows that touching you means war with the Kozlovs. As my daughter's mother, Sophia has the full weight of my name, my resources, my empire behind her. His expression darkened. Separate from me, you're both just targets with a price tag. You're manipulating me. I'm protecting you. His hands came down on either side of me, caging me against the desk. There's a difference. Is there? I met his gaze, refusing to cower. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're using fear to force me into compliance, just like you always did. Something flickered across his face, pain, maybe, or recognition of the truth in my words. I never wanted you to fear me. But I did. I do. The admission came out broken. Do you know what it was like, loving you? It was like loving a storm, beautiful and terrifying and completely unpredictable. I never knew which version of you would come home. The man who'd read me poetry in bed, or the one with blood on his hands who'd look at me like I was next if I asked the wrong question. I never would have hurt you. You hurt me every day. The words exploded out. Every time you chose that life over us. Every time you came home with death in your eyes. Every time I had to pretend it was normal, that I was okay, that I wasn't slowly dying inside. Then why? His voice cracked. Why did you come to that hospital? Why not drive the extra hour to a different city, a different state? Why risk? Because she was sick. Tears burned my eyes. Because I was terrified and exhausted and desperate, and I wasn't thinking about you or your enemies or anything except getting help for my daughter. I pushed at his chest, but he didn't move. Our daughter. I didn't want this. I didn't want to see you again, to feel. I stopped, the words catching in my throat. To feel what? He leaned in, voice dropping. To feel this? His hand came up to my face, and I felt myself trembling. To remember that despite everything, despite the fear and the anger and the 6 years apart, some part of you still responds to me? That's just. Just what? He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching mine. Chemistry? Muscle memory? His thumb traced my cheekbone. Or maybe it's the same thing that made me search for you for years. That made me refuse to sign those divorce papers. That makes me look at our daughter and see everything I should have had, everything you took from me. I took her from a life of violence. You took her from me. His voice was raw. You took my chance to be a father, to hold her as a baby, to hear her first words, he stopped, jaw working. You took everything, Natalie. And now you expect me to just let you walk away again, to risk losing you both to men who'd use you to destroy me? So what's your solution? Keep us locked up forever? Make us prisoners in? Make you family? He pulled back enough to look at me. Real family. Not the broken, dysfunctional version we had before, but something, he struggled for words. Something worth protecting. Worth changing for. You can't change. Men like you don't change. Watch me. The words were a vow. I've already started. Volkov's entire operation was dismantled last night. His men are either dead or scattered. The contract on Sophia's life died with him. Horror washed over me. You killed him. I killed the threat to my daughter. No remorse in his voice. No hesitation. And I'd do it again. I'd kill 100 men if that's what it takes to keep her safe. To keep you safe. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You solve everything with violence. You. I solve it the only way I know how. His hands moved to my shoulders. But I'm trying to learn other ways. For Sophia. For you. If you'll let me. And if I won't? His expression hardened. Then you'll stay here anyway. You'll be protected, provided for, given everything you need. But you'll stay. Because I'm not losing my daughter again. And wherever she is, you need to be. That's non-negotiable. You can't force me to. I'm not forcing anything. His grip tightened slightly. I'm offering you a choice. Stay as my enemy, fighting me every step while I do everything in my power to keep you both alive. Or stay as my wife. Let me give you the life you should have had. And maybe, his voice dropped. Maybe we find a way to be a family. A real one. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. It's reality. He released me, stepping back. And you have until tonight to decide. Either way, you're not leaving. But how comfortable your imprisonment is, a ghost of a smile crossed his face. That's up to you. The door opened, and Dimitri appeared. Sir, the security detail is set. The girl's room is under constant surveillance. And your mother called. She's heard about, he glanced at me. The situation. She wants to meet them. Victor's expression shifted, surprise, maybe, and something else. Tell her tomorrow. We need time to settle first. His mother? You told her about Sophia? I asked once Dimitri left. She has eyes everywhere. She knew before I did that something had happened at the hospital. He moved to the window, his back to me. She wants to meet her granddaughter. Her only grandchild. The weight of that settled over me. It wasn't just Victor anymore. It was his entire family, his organization, his world. And Sophia, innocent, sweet Sophia, was at the center of it all now. I need to get back to her, I said quietly. Of course. Victor turned. Irina will bring lunch to her room. Anything she wants. Anything you want. I want my freedom. That's the one thing I can't give you. His eyes met mine. Not anymore. Not when giving it to you means risking everything. I left without another word, my mind spinning with impossible choices and the terrible knowledge that he was right. We couldn't leave. Not safely. Not with a price on Sophia's head and enemies circling. I was trapped in the very life I'd spent 6 years escaping. And the worst part, the absolutely worst part, was that some small, traitorous corner of my heart still remembered what it was like to love Viktor Kozlov. Still wondered if the man I'd fallen for was buried somewhere beneath the monster. Still hoped, despite everything, that maybe he could change. I found Sophia awake and playing with toys Irina had brought, dolls and stuffed animals scattered across the bed. She looked up when I entered, her smile bright and innocent. Mommy, look what Irina gave me. She says I can keep them. That's wonderful, baby. And she says the man, Mr. Kozlov, he asked what my favorite foods are. She's making them for lunch. His consideration, his attention to detail, even in the midst of everything, it was the Victor I'd fallen in love with. The one I'd thought was lost forever. Can we stay here, Mommy? Please? I like it here. I looked at my daughter, at her joy, her comfort, her safety, and felt the walls closing in around my heart. Yes, baby, I whispered, the words tasting like surrender. We can stay. At least for now. At least until I figured out how to save us both from the monster who thought he was saving us instead.